and welcome to Legally Speaking with me, Tarun Nangia. It's so refreshing when a Supreme Court of India takes suo motu cognizance of an environment issue. We've seen in the past few years, environment didn't get that sort of an attention, and this time it is the state that gets one of maximum tourists. That's the state of Rajasthan, and pollution in the Jojri River and surrounding areas, industrial effluents being put that has also an impact on wildlife. And Justice Vikram Nath and Justice Sandeep Mehta took cognizance, and a series of actions are to follow. What those actions are, what impact will those actions have on improving the environment in the state of Rajasthan? That my panel is an expert on. Let me introduce to you my panel: Advocate Sudhir Mishra, well-known advocate who takes up a lot of environment cases pan-India. Good to see you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Senior Advocate Percival Bilimoria. He also feels strongly for the environment, also animals, gives a disproportionate amount of time whenever needed, sometimes even appears pro bono in these kind of matters. Good to see you, Mr. Bilimoria. Appreciate your time. Advocate Vivek Jain, who's an advocate at the Supreme Court, Delhi High Court, and other forums, also appears many times in the Rajasthan state, state that which he hails from. Good to see you, Vivek. Appreciate your time. At the outset, let me request Sudhir Mishra, advocate, to give me a sort of a analysis of what the Supreme Court is doing. You've spent the past 2.5 decades doing environment litigation. I think you would be best placed to tell us what Justice Vikram Nath and Justice Sandeep Mehta are doing here.
So thank you, Tarun. This is a very important order, I would say. It's a pending matter. And I would say 21st July was a significant day. On that day, two major courts of the Supreme Court were dealing with river issues. Justice Pardiwala was passing orders that day on Ganga, and also about Yamuna, that how it is shrinking in Mathura Vrindavan. And this particular order, which has been part of a suo motu petition, it's ongoing. But this is a matter which is very significant, since you mentioned while introducing the subject that Rajasthan is critical. You have a state which covers 10% of the geographical area and has 1% of the water. And they don't have river basins like Ganga, Yamuna, Brahmaputra. They have this river basin, which is basically Luni river system. Our Jojari order, this order about the Jojari river, that's a tributary of the river Luni. Luni travels through, starts from Aravallis. So Aravalli remains the flavor. It starts from Aravallis, goes right up to Run of Kutch. It travels in Rajasthan roughly 400 kilometers. And you imagine the situation that the water has become pink. That's what they mention in one of the reports. And the second part is why I'll say this is a very significant order, and it will develop that 20 years has passed since Vellore Citizen Forum case, which was one of the first river order which was passed, precautionary principles, and all those aspects were dealt with regard to this Tamil Nadu river. Exactly 20 years later, we are redefining the entire river jurisprudence. So the bench has not talked about precautionary principles or violation of some statutory laws. They have asked that how the human life is affected, how the wildlife is affected, how the chinkara and blackbucks are affected, how the whole grassland and river basin is going to affect. And they have taken a very long shot about this entire thing, which is a very significant departure, that they have taken a very comprehensive approach about this entire thing. These are my initial thoughts.
Thank you. I'll go to Senior Advocate Percival Bilimoria for his opening comment on what the Supreme Court is doing for improving environment in Rajasthan.
Right. So thank you, Tarun. We are talking about the environment and the ecosystem, which is very, very different from concerns on pollution. Right. There is a lot of debate when it comes to pollution about whether pollution is first of all man created. Okay, there are a lot of scientific papers. I have read some of these. I don't claim to be an expert, unlike my good friend Sudhir, but I can certainly tell you that environment, in my view, is much more important than even the pollution, right? Because pollution ultimately disperses into the air. All right, it does create what is known as the I think the carbon effect and the greenhouse effect. But again, scientific views are sharply divided on that. On environment, there can be no question because to see when it comes to, for example, cleaning of the Ganga, successive uh, authorities and governments have been talking about this but have not been successful in doing it. All right, and I think Sudhir can probably throw more light on this, but we can certainly use many more decisions like these by Justice Vikram Nath, who actually is a fabulous judge. If you look at his track record, even before he came to the Supreme Court, I've been a great admirer of this particular jurist. And of course, Justice Mehta is in fact from Rajasthan, so he probably knows the local conditions there better. The directions that Sudhir talked about is, transfer land to the forest department. There were some industries there who claimed to be white industries. I'm not familiar with the term, but I think it means that they were not really discharging effluents in the river. And they were also shut down. And there's been a direction to the state government to look into this. And if they are really white category, then it says that continued closure is not warranted. Pollution Control Board has been given the task to treat and ensure safe disposal of the effluent. It says take all necessary steps. It remains to be seen what happens in that case. And the state government, this is interesting, the state government has been entrusted with the task of filing an affidavit to explain its failure to redress the situation.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting set of directions, and as I said, it's much more concerning to me because it affects the entire ecosystem.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your opening comment. I'll go to Advocate Vivek Jain. Vivek, it's your home state. Supreme Court wants to improve environment there. What do you want to say about what the Supreme Court is doing?
See, I think the Supreme Court has been very sensitive, and we should laud Supreme Court for being sensitive about these topics. I think the first and foremost thing which we can feel and we can see is how sensitive the court is, and how, because it's not a writ petition, it's not a petition which is filed in the court by somebody. Court has taken a suo motu cognizance. So court is sensitive as to what is happening in the society. The judges are sensitive. And especially this bench, Justice Mehta hails from Rajasthan. He understands the local problems, and it actually started with a YouTube video where one of the tributaries has been highlighted. But then you can look at the bench as to how detailed the bench was, where the bench had said that this is not a problem of one tributary; it is a problem of the full river system, which is the basin. Now, heads off to the Supreme Court judges to actually understand the basic problem and nip it in the bud, that I would not, because you would not be able to treat the problem if you're just treating one tributary. It's a full river basin, a river system, and it is in fact the largest one in the Western Rajasthan. If you see, the second thing which according to me is important is that, see, Jojali River is a seasonal river. Now, there is a marked distinction now where Supreme Court has in fact recognized that these seasonal rivers are not expendables. You have to protect them because they are not just rivers, they are just not just a line on a map, but there is a basin around it, there is an ecology around it, there is a flora, fauna, diversity, and the soil around it, the farmers. I think everybody around it gets affected. So hats off to Supreme Court to be sensitive, to be alive to the situation. And I would say the three orders which the Supreme Court had passed, these are in a nature of a hybrid orders. And sometimes such measures are required because you could see the Supreme Court has not tied down this issue to the violation of municipal laws, violation of not having proper CETP, etc. It's a comprehensive exercise which is done, which is actually saying that I would want to restore the ecological balance of that area, which is hats off to the Supreme Court to have initiated and taken over to itself such a big task and understanding it. That's the most important part of it, because you have to understand the complex nature of the issue. So, according to me, that's something which I would want to say in the opening remark.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to request Advocate Sudhir Mishra to read out what the Supreme Court has directed the state to do. Can you maybe read out a feu points which you think are relevant?
I am not having anything with me, but I can only tell you, see what Vivek said and what Bilmoria sir has said. Uh, Basically, in my understanding, let's not look at it from a Rajasthan prism only. See, there has been talk about protecting our rivers for almost 32 years now. But in this particular month, why I'm telling you, when I talked about the Ganga and Yamuna both being taken up in another bench of Justice Pardiwala and Justice Vishwanathan, on July 9th, Madurai bench of Tamil Nadu High Court passed a very, very interesting order. And that's about a river which is called Tamira Barani. Now, in this, for the first time, it has been said in any matter, even in the name of religion, river can't be polluted. Now, if you think that one of the biggest problem with our entire river basin, and then I'll come to the Rajasthan uniqueness, that the Ganga and Yamuna, when our festivals happen, and then when we discharge everything in the river, this is the first order of a high court, which happened this year, where they have said, you can't discard your clothes, you can't discard your chappal, you can't discard your...
Mr. Sudhir Mishra, sorry to interrupt, but I'm asking you a very important question. Where will the Hindus who have been for hundreds of years disposing of puja material and other in the river, where should they throw it?
So this has to be, so in this particular case, the temple came forward. They decided a more pragmatic approach. They even appointed people that how you will regulate this entire thing. It's a very sensitive matter. I'm not going to say something more on this, but if you examine this judgment, which is being hailed by everybody now, that if you really want to protect these rivers, these are 1500 kilometer, 1700 kilometer rivers. They are the lifeline. Vivek was so right. When it comes to rest of the India, you still have an entire basin. That's why Justice Pardiwala has said that I want to see encroachment across the river basin now. And again, that order was also passed on 21st of June, 21st of July. Now, coming to Rajasthan, please try to understand the uniqueness of the situation. When I was helping the court in the Ridhima Pandey matter as amicus on the carbon emissions matter, I insisted Ministry of Textile should be party there. And we got them made a party. If you remember, we did a show also on that issue. Textile is always something which gets out of the picture. And they do 10% of carbon emissions. Always automobile and other industries are in the front, or the energy and other sector. Rajasthan, whether it's Balotra and other places, or even in this case where Luni River system, and more particularly this particular river has been completely destroyed, it's the dyeing industry. Most of the dyeing industry, which is in those parts of Pali and Balotra, which has been discharging. And they are in the most hazardous category. The white category, which are non-polluting. But the hazardous category, you need very different kind of effluent treatment plant to even filter everything. See, Europe has dealt with this situation 80, 90 years back. And they failed largely to clear their rivers. That's why most of the garment production shifted out in 17 and 80s to rest of the world. So these are very deep issues. When you come to Rajasthan, one small issue of solar panels. They were using drinking water, groundwater for cleaning that solar panels in some part of Rajasthan. The High Court and NGT both took up that matter. So Vivek is right. This is one state where, whether it's Keval Dev Bird Sanctuary, Sariska Tiger Reserve, or Aravalli's survival. Now here, Aravalli is the fountainhead of this river too. This all is about a very fragile ecosystem you're talking about, where your groundwater extraction is number 2 in the country.
Point well taken. I'll go to Senior Advocate Percival Bilimoria. Mr. Bilimoria, the bench Justice Vikramnath and Justice Sandeep Mehta found that the allegations of discharge of pollutants will lead in Rajasthan groundwater pollution, agricultural pollution, wildlife and public health will be impacted, which means diseases and animals will sort of die. Uh, what do you think the Supreme Court is going to do here? Do you think we, via what the action this bench is taking, we will see a large scale cleanup in the state of Rajasthan in the coming months, or this is going to take a bit of time after the affidavits have been given and all?
So, Tarun, it's very difficult to clean up a river. I think prevention is probably the prime responsibility. And I think, sadly, this thing may have gone bad quite rapidly and too far. But, that's not to say anything about the order, because the order is in the right direction. And I'm sure that when other related issues come up in its implementation, then the Supreme Court will be equally vigilant. Now, I just want to say one thing, that this issue of effluent treatment is going to get even more pronounced, because if you follow geopolitics, there's this huge issue about rare earths. Okay, now, as Sudhir Mishra, pointed out, textile industry, in Europe, they could not do it. And all that they did is that they said, okay, let somebody else dirty the rivers. We don't really want to do it in our land. More of this is going to happen when you look at rare earths. Now, today, rare earths is a very, very important mineral. It is misunderstood that rare earths are rare. That is not the case. The difficulty is that the cost of isolating rare earths from the land. Rare earths are plentiful, but to isolate them in that process is extremely polluting. So, and now there is this race for rare earths between China and USA. Each country is trying to corner one or the other. So, and India is not too far behind in that race. And so, therefore, this is now the new textile industry debacle that has
Point,
already happened.
Point very well taken. I'll go to Advocate Vivek Jain. The court has observed that there's going to be residents have reported in Rajasthan that in the districts and the villages around Melba, Dhawa, Jhanwar, this is in Luni Tehsil, these areas, residents have said Chinkara population came down, blackbuck population came down, foxes population came down, and nilgai population, which means all these animals are dying because of pollution. Do you think the Supreme Court is sort of going to come down heavily, given that this is also a tourist state? It's not just a sort of this state relies on its income via tourism. What do you think will happen here now?
We need to also, I think, realize what the court is dealing with. And so you have non-compliant industries. That's number one. That's the number one problem which you're facing. Secondly, you have people who have interest in not investing enough in CETP plant. They don't want to manage it because there are costs which are involved in managing the CETP. You might have a CETP plant, but Mr. Mishra would know that to manage CETP plant is another ball game.
Correct.
So there is an incentive in not investing enough in management of CETP plant. That's the second thing which was happening. The third thing which was happening here was a illegal transport of disposal. So there was a whole network of illegally transporting all this waste by tankers, etc. So there is a syndicate which is working on that also. So that's the third problem which the whole thing was facing. And then there are multiple interests in the industrial land around the basin. So that is something which that has also been faced with. And all this gets compounded when you have a government departments dealing with it. Who is dealing with it? The Industrial Development Organization, the municipal corporation, the district magistrate's office. You know how difficult it is to manage these things on a larger. You can manage one office, two office, a third office. but it's very difficult to manage this whole ecosystem. So this is the whole ecosystem which has developed around it, which would not want any interference of any sort. So you need a big hammer of a Supreme Court order only to actually bring about changes, according to me. And that's why I mentioned that this is actually a hybrid thing, which the High
Yeah.
Court has done. When it not only is, see, this is a matter which is like a continuing mandamus. We call it continuing mandamus because you pass orders and then you comply, and then you actually also enforce its compliance. Therefore it's a continuing mandamus which is going on, and that's the jurisdiction which the court has actually, embarked upon in this case. Now, seeing all this, if you see, these are the problems which they are facing with. Now, what has Supreme Court done in this, and how it has dealt with this, is also very interesting to see. It has made a high-powered committee with a retired High Court judge, who is Mr. Justice Sangeet Lota, as he's retired. Now he is also hailing from the same place. He knows the local situation, and with that, they've been given the full paraphernalia of the state machinery at their disposal. And then the directions were given as to what all has to be implemented and how it has to be implemented. There are various things which I could actually read from the judgment, that you have to have a machinery based wastewater accounting. Now earlier it used to be only on estimates. The court has given direction that it has to be machinery based in this. Then they have banned tankers. Now they have banned transport of industrial effluents. They have also restored the natural flow path of the Jajori River. That's the objective of it. And then they had said that you do a scientific study of it also, of contaminated soil, etc. So Supreme Court right now is dealing with a problem which nobody has put its head on. So somebody has to scientifically also analyze as to what is the extent of damage. So Supreme Court, while giving all these reformatory measures, has also ordered for a parallel inquiry into as to what is happening on the ground. So, and obviously, they've asked for some special environmental courts for prosecution, etc. That's also been seen. So you would see that these kind of orders and this kind of judgment is not passed in a jiffy. They have actually applied themselves fully into it. I think both the judges have to be congratulated, because they would have gone through the thousands of pages of documents and would have found out what the real problem is. And
Yes.
credit goes to the committee also to point out. In fact, the committee pointed out that there are various illegal pipelines which are there. Now, these illegal pipelines which were transporting effluents directly into the river basin, nobody is interested in telling. The local administration, municipal board, etc., nobody is interested. How did you find out that there were illegal pipelines? You found out because the court has taken a hybrid view of having a committee going there with the state support. So I would think that this is, I think, an approach which would also set an example. Like as Mr. Mishra was saying, it would also set an example and a template to be followed in the rest of the India, because everywhere you would see, so wherever you have the textile plant, like you have Buddha Nala issue in Ludhiana, in Punjab, that's a big issue there in Buddha Nala. So you would have these issues everywhere in India, and you can't afford to shift these textile industries outside. There are huge revenues the states are earning because of it. So you can't afford what Europe could have done. So this is a template, I think, which could be replicated, obviously with its with amendments, etc., as per the state realities. But according to me, it sets into motion a very good example, a template to be followed everywhere. And we have to congratulate judges to have gone through it and devised this method to deal with this huge complex problem. It's an environmental problem which not only involves humans, it involves the flora, fauna, diversity, animals, everything around us.
Point very well taken. In fact, we'll do a follow-up show because the all-powerful Chief Secretary of Rajasthan, and I say all-powerful with emphasis added, is indeed very powerful. V. Srinivas is going to appear before Supreme Court on August 4, 2026, and sort of submit to the court on what developments have happened in the state. I think if this bench of Justice Vikramnath and Justice Sandeep Mehta take it upon themselves, I think a state that contributes a lot of foreign exchange and tourism revenue will be a much better state in the next 1-2 years and with the Chief Secretary on board. So I think this follow-up is necessary, which we will do before August 4th, before the Chief Secretary appears before the Supreme Court of India. And I think issues like these need to be taken to its logical conclusion. I would like to thank Sudhir Mishra, Senior Advocate Percival Billy, Advocate Vivek Jain for joining hands and coming on this important issue that concerns one of the most tourist-friendly and visited states of India and famous globally, which is Rajasthan. I think we should be able to make something good of it with all the encouragement, support, and the initiative that our Supreme Court has taken. Appreciate your joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.